Today is a how-to on the KA car. So I got a wicked clunk coming from the rear end. I swapped the wheel bearing and it's still clunking, so I think it's the axle. So this is going to be a how-to on how to change your wheel bearing on your Nissan 240SX S14 and how to change your axle. I'm gonna do both videos in once. I put a brand new $300 wheel bearing in the back of the KA car, thinking that was the issue the other day. And I'm going to take it back out since it's not the issue and put the good wheel bearing back in. Reason being, that wheel bearing is supposed to be a spare for the JZ car. So I will go over what you need to do this job and how to do the job. So here we go. Laid out right here is some of the essentials that you're going to need. Needle nose plier, 36 for the axle bolt, some sort of ratchet. I like this longer one. I get a little bit more torque on it. 17, these are both 17s, one's 1/2 inch because I'm going to put it on the impact. You don't need to have an impact to do this job. 19 and a 19 wrench and a 17 wrench. So wrenches, sockets, wrench, big boy, pull your wheel off and get started. Needle nose is for this cotter pin right here. We got to pull that cotter pin out, takes off this fancy cover, and reveals the axle bolt. From that, brake caliper off, arms off, coilover off. That all drops down real nice, and then you can get to the bolts for the wheel bearing and to slide the axle out. So let's get positioned and start tackling this project. All right. First things first. I'm just going to spin the wheel so I can see this cotter pin better. I don't know about anybody else, but every single time I mess with the cotter pin, I pretty much end up breaking it. So make sure you have some extras laying around. You can get kits of cotter pins for dollars on Amazon. There's that fancy cover. That is off, revealing this bad boy. 36 monster. Again, you don't need to have an impact to do this job, but you in that case would need to have the e-brake on or something of that sort so that the wheel doesn't move on you. But let's zip this off quick. Off she comes. Big boy over there. All right, now we got that off. We can get off the caliper. Again, 17s on the bottom of the caliper. One bolt and washer. Now you need your 17 wrench to get the top one. See if I can position you a little bit better. All right, after 5 minutes of trying to get this tool in here, if you have a 17 ratcheting wrench, it'll make your life a lot easier. Besides a 17 ratcheting wrench, I don't think anything fits in here. All right, now that that's off, slide off the caliper, yoink. Rotor, yoink. Okay. And now you can see a little bit what's going on. Here's my brand new hub that I just put on there. Car must be in gear, it's locked in position. Here's your two mounts for your caliper. So you can see how those bolt onto that point. So now we have to get this off, this off, this off, and this off, and the whole thing will drop down. So I'll get you guys repositioned here and we will get to the 19s. The 19s are going to do this job. All right, in this case I'm using a 1/2 inch Milwaukee and with a 19 socket on it and then a 19 wrench. You by no means need a 1/2 inch to get this job done. They are not that intense. They typically come apart pretty easy. This specific car, I believe, is a 96, and you can kind of see how the hardware is still clean on it. Come in from the other direction. So you can see how clean and nice these factory bolts still are. I could just be lucky in this case. I have had other situations. Should have added a rubber mallet to my list of tools. Yeah. All right. Rubber mallet. All right. Smaller rubber mallet. More manageable. Once that's out of the way, you can see that you can slide the other bolt out of the way. I like to keep all my hardware together like this. That way I don't lose anything. This one is next, which I believe is a 17. Yep. There's that, another nice clean bolt. And once we get that old girl out of the way, there we go. Had to put a little pressure on her. All right, all my hardware is organized. You can see the axle is now free. Do not lose this washer, that's important. All right, axle is free. Not the easiest thing in the world, but it's free, which exposes these 4 bad boys. 1, 2, 3, 4. Releasing those 4, drops out the wheel bearing. 1, 2, 3, 4. And boom. Here's my fancy brand new wheel bearing that got put on for a little bit yesterday, that we are going to swap the other wheel bearing back because this one is not bad. So that's how you get to your axle. That's how you get to your wheel bearing. I will get you under the car in a moment to show you a few bolts that are left. All right. reverse fashion for the wheel bearing. Take it, slide it in there. Make sure your holes are lined up. Really nice. Get those bad boys started. Because if they're started, then it won't fall out. Since they're all started, carefully bring them in. You can see it's all sitting nice and flush. And impact them down. All right, I'm sure it's hard to see, but we're here under the car. This is actually part of the axle shaft right here. You got the bolts. It comes in from the other direction here, if I can get this flipped around. If you're able to see anything here, axle shaft comes in. This is the rear end. I know we're extremely close under the car here. And then here's where the axle shaft bolts up. So 2 12s is what gets this job done. You gotta get the 6 nuts off. Some people like to pull the exhaust off to make it a little bit easier. For me, I just work around it and make it happen. One less thing to do. So I'm gonna get this pulled off and pulled out, and then we'll examine what we're working with. All right, so here is the new one. Here is the old one. This one, actually both axles in this car are actually reman axles. So remanufactured. They don't hold up as well, honestly, as the originals. If this wasn't a 100 horsepower car, I wouldn't even be using these, but it is what it is. So here's the new axle. Comes with everything you need, a new nut, the whole works. We're just gonna get this tossed on quick. For the nuts, when I put the bolts and nuts back in, I like to use blue thread locker just to make sure they don't back themselves out. This is the issue with this axle. It's like broken in there, where this one's doesn't do that. So hopefully that excessive play is where I'm getting the knocking noise from, but we got to get it back together to know for a fact. All right, at this point I got the axle sitting in here, and you can see it, if I get a light on here for you, all the way back there. One thing that's not a bad idea that I'll do after I get it tight, if you have a partner, you could do this from the beginning. You can actually take a 12 mil socket and 2 extensions and run it all the way back there and actually zip them tight, which also helps greatly. But after this, just knuckle back in its spot, get the arms on, put the brake caliper on, get the big nut on, and you guys are good. So that's how you remove a wheel bearing and an axle on a Nissan 240SX. Thanks, guys.